The midnight air on the jagged peaks of Mount Koro was thick with the scent of high-octane fuel and melting rubber. Neon headlights pierced the deep fog, illuminating a sea of underground street racers. At the center of the spectacle stood Kenji, a 19-year-old mechanic with grease permanently stained under his fingernails. He possessed a supernatural instinct for driving, honed by thousands of hours, testing customer cars and dominating simulators. Yet he didn't own a single vehicle. Tonight, the mountain belonged to Ryota. Ryota was a wealthy, arrogant syndicate heir who just rolled in driving an absolute monster. A flawless, wide-bodied Toyota Supra Mk4, pushing a dyno-verified 850 horsepower from its legendary 2JZ GTE engine. The crowd parted as Ryota slammed the Supra's hood, holding up his pink slip. "I'm bored! If anyone here can beat me down the mountain, you take the Supra. But if you lose, I take your ride!" Silence fell. No one dared challenge the beast. Kenji's fists clenched. He knew the mountain's twists better than his own heartbeat. "I'll race you," Kenji declared, stepping into the headlights. The crowd erupted into laughter. Ryota smirked, looking Kenji up and down. "With what, kid? Your sneakers!" Suddenly, the aggressive, guttural idol of an SR-20 engine echoed from the darkness. A bruised, matte black Nissan Silvia S13 drifted into the clearing, stopping inches from Kenji. The door opened to reveal Toshi, the grizzled owner of the tuning shop where Kenji worked. Toshi stepped out and tossed a set of keys through the cold air. Kenji caught them. "The suspension is dialed in for the downhill, kid," Toshi growled, his cigarette glowing. "Don't scratch my paint." Kenji slid into the bucket seat, strapping into the 5-point harness. The S13 was a stripped-down featherweight, a true sleeper built for the corners. He gripped the Momo steering wheel, locking eyes with Ryota through the glass. The grid was set. The engines roared, spitting blue flames into the pitch-black night. Right before the flag girl drops her hands, let's take a quick pit stop. Where are you guys watching this high-octane showdown from? Drop your city or country in the comments right now, and let's see who is front row for this battle. The rev limiters bounced aggressively, a deafening symphony of mechanical fury. The flag sliced through the air, and both cars launched like rockets. Ryota's Supra immediately dominated the short straightaway, its massive turbo spooling with a violent hiss as the wide rear tires clawed for traction. The sheer torque pushed the Supra car lengths ahead, leaving Kenji engulfed in a cloud of tire smoke. But Kenji remained dead calm. His eyes narrowed, analyzing every millimeter of the asphalt. As the first sharp hairpin approached, Ryota slammed on his massive carbon ceramic brakes early, the heavy Supra fighting its own immense momentum. This was Kenji's domain. Executing a flawless heel-toe downshift, Kenji dumped the clutch. The S13 howled as he flicked the steering wheel, throwing the lightweight chassis into a brutal, high-angle drift. The Silvia's rear bumper kissed the guardrail, sparking against the cold steel as Kenji carried impossible speed through the apex, closing the gap instantly. Down the treacherous mountain pass, the battle became a lethal dance of power versus agility. Ryota relied on the terrifying straight-line speed of his big single turbo, blasting away on the straights, while Kenji's surgical precision in the tight chicanes kept the S13 glued to the Supra's exhaust tip. Inside the cabin, Kenji's footwork was a blur on the pedals, maintaining peak boost pressure without letting the RPMs drop. The final stretch approached, the infamous Devil's Drop. a sweeping off-camber right turn with a deadly cliff on the outside. Ryota panicked, checking his mirrors, terrified of the relentless matte black shadow haunting him. Desperate to block, Ryota took the inside line, braking hard to secure the apex. But Kenji didn't brake. In a split-second awakening, Kenji shifted up, committing to the perilous outside line. He utilized the gutter drop technique, hooking the S13's inside front tire into the drainage ditch to counter the intense centrifugal force. The Silvia slingshotted around the outside of the heavy Supra, wastegate fluttering violently as the tires found absolute grip. Kenji blasted past Ryota, crossing the finish line just as the Supra's headlights faded in his rearview mirror. The crowd at the mountain base exploded in absolute euphoria. Kenji stepped out of the smoking S13, his legs trembling slightly from the adrenaline. Ryota, utterly defeated and pale, slowly walked over and dropped the keys to the pristine MK4 Supra into Kenji's oil-stained hands. The ultimate prize had been won by a kid with no car, proving once and for all that on the mountain, the driver makes the machine. The checkered flag sliced fiercely through the thick mountain fog, and the asphalt violently erupted. Ryota's MK4 Supra launched like a ballistic missile, its massive 85mm single turbocharger spooling with a deafening jet engine shriek. The heavy rear end squatted, pushing the 335-width semi-slick tires to their absolute thermal limits as 850 horsepower ripped through the reinforced drive shaft. The sheer brute force opened a massive gap on the first straightaway, leaving Kenji enveloped in a suffocating cloud of vaporized rubber and unburned E85 exhaust. But inside the stripped-out cabin of the S13, Kenji's expression remained stone cold, his eyes tracking the red taillights fading into the darkness. He knew the Supra's weight was its fatal flaw on the intricate downhill of Mount Kuro. Approaching the first complex chicane, Ryota panicked under the illusion of his own speed, slamming his massive six-piston brakes early to prevent the heavy nose from understeering. This was the exact millimeter where Kenji struck. Executing a lightning-fast heel-toe downshift, Kenji dumped the clutch, sending a shockwave through the SR20D engine. The Silvia's rear wheels snapped loose, initiating a brutal high-angle inertia drift. The matte black chassis danced on the razor's edge of disaster, the rear bumper sparking aggressively against the steel guardrail as Kenji carried impossible cornering speed, instantly erasing the gap. It became a mesmerizing, high-stakes dogfight. Raw, terrifying straight-line power versus surgical, relentless agility. The S13 clung to the Supra's exhaust like a phantom, the high-pitched flutter of the Silvia's blow-off valve echoing rhythmically against the cliff faces every time Kenji briefly lifted off the throttle. The braking zones grew shorter, the brake rotors of both machines glowing a fierce, translucent orange in the pitch-black night. Then came the final sector, the infamous Devil's Drop, a sweeping off-camber right-hander hovering over a lethal vertical drop. Ryota, drenched in nervous sweat and desperate to block, took the defensive inside line, bearing his brake pedal to secure the apex. But Kenji never lifted. In a split-second display of mechanical telepathy, Kenji shifted into fourth gear, committing to the suicidal outside line. He violently flicked the steering wheel, intentionally dropping the S13's inside front tire into the concrete drainage gutter. The sudden mechanical lock countered the immense centrifugal G-forces, catapulting the lightweight Nissan around the outside of the heavy, struggling Supra. The Silvia's wastegate screamed in pure agony as the tires found absolute grip on the exit. Slingshotting past Ryota just as the finish line materialized in the headlights. The crowd at the mountain base erupted into absolute pandemonium, mobbing the matte black S13 as it rolled to a triumphant halt, brakes smoking and engine ticking wildly from the intense heat. Ryota pulled up moments later, his face drained of color, entirely broken by the impossibility of his defeat. Trembling, he walked through the silent parting crowd and dropped the keys to the flawless, wide-bodied Toyota Supra into Kenji's calloused, oil-stained hands. The mountain had spoken. The ultimate prize belonged to the kid who arrived with nothing, proving to the underground world that raw horsepower will always bow to the undisputed king of the corners.